Good morning. If I look a little tired, it's because I am. I had a whirlwind day yesterday. I flew from Atlanta down to Orlando, got in a rental car, headed over to Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center, for Media Day at Cape Kennedy. Well, why do I always call it Cape Kennedy? Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center. For the State of NASA address. The acting director, Robert Lightfoot, gave essentially kind of the State of the Union for NASA, presenting the budget that has been proposed and sharing NASA's goals for the future, which pretty much is back to the moon, which is kind of cool. I gotta say, I was there because, here, mom blogger, travel writer, NASA has these events called NASA social events, where they host social media influencers, not mainstream media. Mainstream media already goes to the press conferences and that sort of thing, but NASA's really trying to get the word out to just the general population again about what it is they're doing, what the goals are, and really reaching out to the general public. And I'm kind of a tool for that. And I'm more than happy to play a role because I'm a big space fan, not freak. I don't think I'm a freak. I was never great with science in school, never had any real intention of being an astronaut or leading up any special research. I think I'm an innovator and I like to create things, but I'm by no means the person who follows what every rocket can do and, what it all means. But by no stretch, I'm not the STEM girl, as much as I wish I could be. My expertise is in creating, writing, and that sort of thing. But at any rate, to stay on track, because I want you to know why I was there. So I was there as part of the social influencer group, spreading the word about what's in the budget. So I'm going to start with that, but then I'm going to tell you what we got to do after hearing the budget presentation. We heard from different speakers that are leading up the transition for NASA, but also got to go inside and take a tour of something that the general public doesn't typically get to see. So I can't wait to share that with you. But first I want to kind of recap what the budget is. $19.9 billion, which critics will say is still not enough to do what NASA really should be doing as we move forward in the future. But I will say this was the main thing: heading back to Mars, heading back to Mars, heading back to Mars. Now also, and beyond, or heading to the moon. Good grief. See, this is what happens when you haven't slept. I literally flew back last night as well. So at any rate, this is tired, but no, going to the moon again. And it's a matter of partnering with commercial partners. So SpaceX, everybody knows about the Tesla now floating around in space. So SpaceX and Boeing and, Sierra Nevada. I mean, they have so many commercial partners and international partners, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of where things are headed. It's not really NASA that's doing it, but NASA is the platform in order to be able to launch, if that makes any sense. That's what I got out of it. It's no longer about NASA being the one to make it happen, but getting man to the moon and what have you, all commercial ventures now. It's really a commercial focus is really what it is. But I wanted to tell you, they still have plans for the SLS, NASA's launch system, the mega rocket, and the deep space plans. I'm trying to find, they gave me so much information. And I'm just, I'm just going to go through it. And I'm sorry if this seems unorganized, but it was a day. So I'm going to go through. This is really the focus now, the launch services program. So it's really about partnering with the different commercial entities, but they gave us this, and launch services program is their big kind of focus. As you know, SpaceX, this was last week with the Falcon 9, but there's so much, and they say there's not a competition between SpaceX and Boeing and everybody to try and get everything into space. Kind of is. Nobody's admitting it, but there kind of is. So this is what I was just telling you about, the SLS rocket. And this way up here, that part, it's where the people are going to be. Can you imagine? Like, they'll have 4 to 5 people in that, and it will orbit around the moon. That's called Orion. See, that's the part of it. Can you see that tiny? That's the part that I was just pointing out in this picture that has the flag. Whoops, go back. See on there? So at any rate, so that's there. And this is the part that will, these are the parachutes that will send it on back down when they come back into our airspace. Isn't that neat? I love all this stuff. Can you even imagine being in there? This I'll say because it's stuff on the International Space Station, and that's kind of a sore subject. And Journey to Mars. This is kind of the operational flow, because now it's about building the next generation of rockets, which they're doing, okay? Launching them and then recovering them. And see this building right here? Whoop, hold on. It's kind of hard to go. That is the vehicle assembly building. I got to go in there. So cool. So cool. These are pictures I took inside that building. See, they've got all these platforms, like 37 platforms that come together. People are standing, working on the rocket on every level there. Isn't that cool? It was so neat to go inside and see. So I'm trying to show you a little bit. This is Boeing's version. Here we go. I wanted to show you Boeing's. Isn't that cool? So it's part of, they've got this whole commercial crew program now, and all these partners in the American aerospace industry, where essentially they're trying to transport crews to and from low Earth orbit destinations. Isn't that neat? So it's all about orbiting the Earth. We saw these on property, crawlers. Can you see that? That is how they move the rocket from where it's built and get it off to the launch pad, which is nowhere near the building where I always thought it launched from. That'll go to show you. So anyway, so yes, so the focus is still on the SLS rocket, the mega rocket. It's on unpiloted test flights that they're going to start doing by the end of 2019. And again, they say there's no big race. There so is. So is. And they're trying to create a lunar orbiting platform. So even though they're now saying by 2025, no more federal funding for the International Space Station, which I still don't understand. Now, I'm no space expert, but everything great has come out of the space station, you know? All the partnerships with other countries and the things that NASA says it takes to make it work, that's all going away with the International Space Station going away. I mean, they have done, look, this right here has changed the world. 1,500 science experiments have been conducted by researchers in more than 60 countries on this thing. And this is what won't be funded anymore. Money's going away by 2025. So, I mean, let me just tell you, okay, some of the benefits. The space station has allowed us to monitor climate change. They discovered that studying bacteria in space can lead to increase of understanding of how it makes us sick. So hello, flu people. They discovered salmonella up there grows faster. So many interesting things came out of this. And this is part of what's going away with the funding. Something that is coming, though, that's kind of cool, $200 million will go to international studies of, the small lunar landers. So I kind of love that because my maiden name is Lander. So I was thinking, you know what? All these landers going all over, they're going to be taking samples of the moon for us to come back or to bring back and study, and even to Mars and Europa. Ever heard of Europa before, people? Europa Clipper. They are looking to, it says they're going to have continued development of the Clipper, a flagship mission to study Jupiter's icy moon, Europa, and its subsurface. So they're talking about 2 Mars landers and the Mars 2020 rover. So, and they're talking about having robotic missions where they can go get rock samples. So essentially they're looking to see, what is it really like? Is there other life out there? And it's pretty fascinating to me because, again, you know, for me, not a scientist, all of this blows my mind. Just being, you know, a baby the first time we walked on the moon, and then growing up watching all the shuttle launches, and then seeing for the last however long, all of these scientific projects. It's amazing. But I did promise you, I did get inside. Oh, here, they gave us astronaut ice cream. This you can get. I mean, the general public can go do tours of this Kennedy Space Center. They wouldn't be able to go inside the vehicle assembly building like I did yesterday, which again was pretty darn cool to be able to walk around. They took us 16 stories up and we were able to look down and up. I was standing in the spot where they put the shuttles together and standing underneath where you'd look up and see it. It's really fascinating. But at any rate, the idea of us being able to go to Mars and back, and literally Robert Lightfoot was saying by 2030, he says we will be able to look back and see that we have explored space with crews, with people, working on the moon. They said that the SLS and Orion will be sending crews back and forth. I mean, it kind of boggles my mind that they're saying, yes, by 2030, he says we'll have the Jetson cars that everybody's always, we've seen in the movies or the cartoons. And essentially, it's just very interesting. They talked about what NASA's doing as being generational and aspirational. And I think inspirational too. Essentially, these are people who work for an agency that see no boundaries between what most of us think is impossible and possible, and getting the opportunity to really change the world. So it's pretty cool. They are taking a hit today. I will tell you, one of the things that was cut from the budget was education center, and that in itself, it was for internships and college students to come in, and a lot of the employees talked about how cool NASA is to work for and how some of them were actually recruited when they were in college. So it's going to be interesting, how they go back to getting, I guess, recruiting that. But the bottom line is something's got to go when, you're figuring out, I mean, just like in your own budget, you can't pay for everything, and it does kill off, support for that. To me, the bigger goal, I mean, they can still have internships. They will still have educational programs, just not in the same way. The biggest deal is really ending the federal support of the International Space Station by 2025. That's the one that kind of boggles my mind. And I think is the one for us to watch and to see. They're saying they will recycle it and use pieces, parts for the hub that's going to be in lower Earth. Guys, again, not the expert here. I just know that was the part that jumped out at me when I heard it, especially when they talked about how important the international bonds were. That said, they have every intention of exploring and partnering with the commercial partners like Boeing, like SpaceX, and Sierra Nevada, and expanding their international partnerships. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think if you are ever making a trip to Florida, say you're a big Disney fan and your family wants to go to Disney, Cape Canaveral is literally 45 minutes from Orlando. It's an easy drive and totally worth a drive over to go to the visitor center. You can't get inside everything else, but you can get to the visitor center. And I think if you're going to schedule a trip for your family to Disney, why not take half a day to drive over to Cape Canaveral, go in the Space Center, and just absorb what we've done, man getting to the moon and all of that. I grew up just a little ways from there and had only been for like school field trips, that sort of thing. So I think it's worth doing. Also, there's a beautiful beach, national park, actually, National Seashore, the Cape Canaveral National Seashore. I say that 3 times fast. And you know what? If you're in Florida, you got to get to the beach anyway, right? And that was beautiful, a beautiful beach. I went there before getting on property and getting my press credentials for everything yesterday. So that's my take on this. Go to the beach, Cape Canaveral State Seashore, or I guess it's federal, Cape Canaveral Seashore. Go to the visitor center. If you're gonna be, then yes, my son has this on his bucket list. Oh, you please. And you know what? Boston is not very expensive to fly to Orlando now. I think JetBlue, check it out. But at any rate, it's amazing, simply amazing. And I will tell you my one last, again, to be able to go, I wish I brought other info out. Like, I mean, they've got all of this information. Can you imagine? People are going to be orbiting 4 or 5 people in this little, oh, hold on. It's so hard to point. That 4 or 5 people and then floating back down to Earth. They've got all these missions going. There's so much interesting things, so many things happening at the visitor center. I wish I brought some of the other information out, but just to be able to see things like, oh, they do have a tour. You can take a tour off the visitor center around the property. You won't be able to go in, but you'll be able to drive by like the crawler, and you'll be able to see the launch pads, and possibly, this was, you know, I'm a beach baby. Guess what this is? This right here. This is the astronaut beach house. They legit have a beach house, you guys. It started with the Apollo missions. Hi, Lindsay. Can you believe the astronauts had this cool, fun place? And there are books out there, I think, that tell a little bit. When we saw this, all I could think is if those walls could talk, right? If those walls could talk, imagine the fun those astronauts had in that house. And it was really, it's there, it's off property. I know, I want to stay there too. Off property. And now I think it was damaged by the last hurricane, and they've put a lot of work into it, and they use it for meetings now and kind of a convention space, not really a convention, but, you know, meetings. I was like, I volunteer. I would like to have a meeting there. But it's super interesting. They liked it because it's on property and gated, and no one else it was away from the public eye and away from media and whatever. And again, gosh, I would love to read the stories about all the things that happened at that beach house. But there's so many interesting things. There was, you know, when we drove by, and again, you can take the bus tour that will show you, you know, we were standing literally on the beach, and I mean, the launch pad was several football fields away. And I'm thinking, well, I would be safe here, right? And they said, no, you can't. You have to be 2 to 3 miles away, 2 to 3 miles away from a launch because of the massive heat, which I didn't get that. You know, you just don't see that from TV. And they said that's mostly in case something goes wrong or what have you, but at any rate, the next launch, they have several launches, I think 5 or 6 off the launch pads later this year. The next one is March 1st, the GOES satellite, which is a weather satellite. And then again, all of these, I think SpaceX and Boeing both have 2 uncrewed missions that'll be launching. And NASA said, you know, they have to meet certain protocols before they'll let them launch. And one of those is making sure that they have the abort procedures down in case there's a problem. Yeah, 2 miles, 2 to 3 miles, they said. At any rate, so anyways, that is it. I will tell you, I will be writing up a whole blog because I know I just went through a whole lot of information, and because I had very little sleep. I'm not sure how coherent I'm being, but I wanted you to hear it. You know, Time to Talk Travel. You know, usually I'm talking about traveling, you know, to the islands or traveling to Disney. I'm talking about traveling to the moon, to Mars, to Jupiter, to get, you know, samples of Europa. It blows my mind. And all of this is about finding out what other life is out there. Who's out there, you know? Oh, and okay, I gotta tell you, we heard through these speakers afterwards, there actually is a division of NASA called SETI that is searching for extraterrestrials. I didn't think they'd ever really admit that. But anyways, they've got telescopes programmed and all of this. How cool is this stuff? It makes me want to go into space again. And again, I think my time has passed, but I mean, again, as a girl who grew up watching shuttle launches, this stuff blows my mind. Isn't there bacteria fossils on Mars? They're saying yes. They're bringing back. That is their focus now, Lindsay, is looking at what samples they can get from Mars, what they can bring back and study, and where to go from here. So at any rate, I will be putting up a blog. I will post it on my site, Desiree Miller, travel writer, blogger, TV news producer. If you haven't yet, please like this page and keep coming back each week for Time to Talk Travel Tuesday, because you never know where I'm going to take you. Have a great week, guys.